There was a time when the shield meant something sacred, when it wasn't just a weapon but a whisper of sacrifice, when the man who carried it stood not above the people but beside them. Steve Rogers didn't take the title. He earned it in silence, in shadow, in sorrow. He bled for a country that never asked him to, and questioned that same country when it asked for too much. He didn't wear the stars to be worshipped. He wore them to protect those too tired to fight. He was more than muscle, more than myth. He was a man who broke so others didn't have to. Then he left it behind, not as a reward, but as a riddle. A symbol passed like a flame in the dark. The world watched, wondered who could carry what he left behind. Not the metal, but the meaning. Not the shape, but the weight of a promise made in pain. And the show answered, but the answer felt hollow. The torch was passed with speeches and struggle, but no stillness, no soul-searching, no silence where truth could bloom. Sam Wilson became the name, but was never allowed to become the man. The journey was skipped. The burden rushed. Bucky stood there too, haunted and quiet, holding memories no one else could touch. He could have spoken, could have shown us why Steve's choice mattered, but he was hushed, overshadowed, reduced to a sidekick in a story he helped build. And with that silence, the weight of legacy drifted away. In this video, we're going to peel back the polished surface of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll uncover what was lost when the shield was treated like a trophy instead of a trial. We'll explore why the soul of Captain America cannot be passed like a baton, and why rushing that moment didn't just weaken the story, it weakened the meaning of the mantle itself. Captain America was never about the shield. It was about the soul that carried it. Steve Rogers wasn't chosen because he was strong. He was chosen because he was good. Because even when the world burned, he stayed kind. But when the show tried to pass on that legacy, it forgot what made it worth passing. Sam Wilson is brave, loyal, grounded, but the show never let him find his own weight. It thrust the shield into his hands, and expected the audience to feel like the choice had been earned. It skipped the questions, the turmoil, the fear of failing someone like Steve. It assumed worth without proving the journey. The world rejected Sam before he even lifted the shield. Not just the politicians, but the script itself. Instead of letting his character breathe, it surrounded him with noise, with speeches, with posturing, as if words could substitute for growth. As if conflict alone could mold a man into a symbol. Bucky had the arc, the weight, the guilt, the memories of Steve, but the show sidelined him into a sidekick role. His pain became exposition. His redemption rushed. His silence treated like scenery, when, in truth, he was the one who truly understood what the shield cost. The story was never about finding someone to hold a shield. It was about finding someone who could carry its meaning. The quiet courage, the impossible standards, the compassion buried in pain. And when the show tried to force that without the soul behind it, something vital was lost. They spent more time talking about the shield than understanding it. The symbol was everywhere, but the spirit was missing. The red, white, and blue was painted on every wall, but it never bled into the story's heart. It was iconography without intimacy. Steve's journey was slow, earned. He disobeyed orders, broke laws, stood alone when no one else would. He questioned everything, including his own government. But Sam was pushed into the role by pressure, not purpose, by obligation, not evolution. The show gave us scenes instead of moments. It gave us statements instead of revelations. Every conversation felt rehearsed. Every emotional beat felt like a checklist. Instead of letting Sam break down, rebuild, doubt himself, it handed him a suit and said he was ready. Isaiah Bradley could have been the soul of the series, a mirror of everything America tries to hide. But even he was reduced to a chapter in Sam's transformation. His pain used as narrative seasoning instead of the central meal. A tragedy turned into a lesson instead of a legacy. Captain America was always meant to be lonely, to stand when others fell, to carry the burden when others could not. Steve knew that every choice came with silence. That leadership often meant sacrifice, not medals, but scars, not praise, but distance. Sam deserved a chance to walk that same road, to discover that loneliness, to understand that being a symbol meant being misunderstood. But instead of giving him solitude, the show gave him noise. Instead of stillness, it gave him spectacle. Instead of struggle, it gave him politics. He could have wrestled with Steve's choice, wondered why he was picked, asked what it meant to carry someone else's dream. He could have felt resentment, regret, even rejection. And in those shadows, he could have found light. But the story never let him dig. Bucky could have helped him, not with a nod or a joke, but with truth, with pain, with history. They shared Steve's world. They shared its weight, but their bond was glossed over, rushed, traded for action sequences that didn't speak the language of memory. What hurts most is that the show could have been profound. It could have told a story about legacy and grief and identity, but instead, it told a story about passing a torch without letting us see how heavy it really was. And yet, there were moments, fleeting, fragile, where something real broke through. A look from Bucky that said more than words, a scene with Isaiah that shook the silence, a shot of Sam standing alone before the shield, as if facing a ghost. In those glimpses, you could see what the show wanted to be. A tale of transformation, of reckoning with history, of a man finding the courage to wear a symbol that was never made for him, of redefining what that symbol could mean to the world. Sam has always had heart. He's always fought for people. Not flags, not politics, but people. He listens. He helps. He grounds others with his presence. That's why Steve believed in him. Not because he could fight, but because he knew when not to. Bucky's pain could have been poetry. A former killer trying to find humanity in a world that only remembers what he did. He didn't need a mission. He needed forgiveness, not from others, but from himself. And the fact that he's still trying, still searching, that is beautiful. So when Sam finally lifted that shield, when he flew not because someone told him to, but because he believed it was right, there was a spark, a rare moment when fiction and feeling aligned, and you could almost believe the symbol meant something again. What if the show wasn't perfect, but still mattered? What if it failed, but left something behind worth rebuilding? Maybe the shield wasn't fully earned, but maybe it still found the right hands. Sam can still become the captain the world needs, not because the show told us he is, but because we'll watch him become it over time, through choices, sacrifices, and heartbreaks still to come. The suit may have come too early, but the man inside it still has time to grow. Legacy is messy. It's not about inheritance. It's about understanding, about taking something broken and making it whole in your own way. Steve's story didn't end with a handoff. It ended with a question. Who will carry this forward with truth? Maybe the real arc is still ahead. Maybe Sam will stumble, will fall, will confront parts of himself he never wanted to face. And maybe through that pain, he'll become the Captain America that the world and the audience deserves. Because hope doesn't come from declarations. It comes from persistence, from the quiet refusal to give up, from the man who chooses to rise even when the world tries to keep him grounded. But until that happens, we're left with what could have been. A show that had everything, and delivered only fragments. A story about legacy, that forgot to explore the soul beneath the symbol. Steve Rogers stood alone in alleyways, against tyrants, against his own government. He was a hero, not because he won, but because he never stopped questioning who he was fighting for. The show never gave Sam that same fire, that same rebellion, that same silence before the storm. It skipped the journey and handed us the destination. It feared letting Sam break, so it pretended he was whole. It feared letting Bucky speak, so it made him silent. It feared letting America be ugly, so it painted over the cracks with speeches instead of scars. Captain America was never about the flag. It was about the fight behind the scenes. The impossible balance between hope and history, between justice and truth, between doing what's right and paying the price for it. And maybe that's why the show missed the point, because it tried to tell us Sam was ready, without ever showing us how he became ready. And in doing so, it forgot that the shield only matters when it's earned, not inherited, not assumed, but carried with the weight of everything it stands for.